Hi, this is Rob with Comic Book Crossfire, and if you know me, you know that I like listening to podcasts, and recently with the success of the Avengers, most subject matters have been centered around the world's mightiest team and the success of that movie. But I've also heard a lot of people complain that there's no way DC could do the equivalent with their characters, be it whether their characters aren't strong enough or whether their movie ability just wouldn't work as a team. Well, first of all, let me tell you, 5 years ago, there was no way I thought this Avengers movie was going to ever be made to this degree. This is so it can be done. Second of all, I'm going to tell you my theory of how I would do it. Let's start with the Man of Steel movie coming out next summer. Now, assuming the Man of Steel movie is good, again, that could be a broad assumption, but who knows? Maybe let's say it's going to be great. All the pieces are in place that it could be. Let's just assume it will be. Somewhere in the middle of the movie, maybe at the beginning of the movie, you have this throwaway moment that Clark is on the farm growing up, and there's a farmhand who's a longtime family friend on the farm. And I'm going to use the John Ostrander Mandrake story as this farmhand has a relationship with the Kents and actually has maybe been saved by Clark at some point or something, and just seems to be very interested in Clark and is a very good friend of his. Just a throwaway moment, nothing big. You just recognize, we'll call him John. And John and Clark have a decent relationship. John's a slightly older man, nothing special about him other than he seems interested in Clark. Throwaway moment, go on with your movie like you normally would. Roll credits at the end of Man of Steel, and you wait, and Clark is in Metropolis, maybe flying into his apartment, changing from Superman, I don't know. And there is a figure in his house, and there's John. Doesn't look like he's aged a day. It's John. And he transforms into the Martian Manhunter, and he just says, "We're gonna need help." Boom, end of movie. That's how you start it. Then, here's my big degree to make it different from Marvel, yet still like Marvel. Because Marvel did it right. They set up all their characters individually, made you like them individually, and then put them together in something bigger, and still made that bigger thing work. Well, here's how you make DC different, but the same. You come out with a series of world's finest movies after Man of Steel. Because I don't think many of DC's characters could support their own movie, not because they're not strong enough characters, but because I think the general public doesn't want to like them. Iron Man had a story that figured out how to make him the focal point in a universe. Iron Man was not a focal point before that movie came out, at least not in the general public's eyes. Geek's eyes, yes, very possibly. Okay, so here's what you do. You have a Green Lantern Flash World's Finest movie. We already have a semi-established Green Lantern, who, giving your argument whether it was a good movie or not, it wasn't. But it could be a Green Lantern movie and a Flash movie. And this way you're not focusing too much on either one. You're building up their friendship, because in DC history these would be very good friends to have together. And you call it World's Finest Flash and Green Lantern. You build up both of those characters. At the very end, you have another similar situation where a familiar character in the movie transforms to the Martian Manhunter and says, "I'm building a team." Or something like that. It doesn't have to be, but you can say something like, "It's coming. It's coming." Then the next World's Finest movie will be Wonder Woman Aquaman. Two characters, again, that have had semi-relationships outside of their own universes, book-wise, and you build their movie. They both could be similar. You have like you go to the Flashpoint story where they're Atlantis is warring with the Amazons. Why not? And then you have that they build a relationship. Why, DC, make that history happen. It could be very easily done that the Amazons and the Atlanteans fought, and there's your movie. Then, it'll be the Thor equivalent in the DC universe, where it's kind of mystical and otherworldly. Then you make the last big one, and it's the obvious World's Finest. You bring Superman and Batman together in a movie. Now, this movie alone could be comparable to the Avengers if done right. but you still use it as a setup for the bigger Justice League movie. You bring these two together, then at the very end you have John and the other team that he's assembled, and there's where you make the big movie. And what's coming? Make it silly. DC is slightly sillier than Marvel. That's what DC has always been. They've been sort of the grandpa of comics, but they're still cutting edge. Bring in Starro. Make it tiny, maybe campy or not. You could make it where Starro is just as evil as, you know, the aliens from Aliens. That they all latch onto people's faces and then build these armies, and you have this giant star creature in the sky. You can make him look scary, or you can make him look crazy. You don't have to call him Starro, but, you know, it's Starro. You don't bring in Darkseid yet. It would be too much. You just can't do a Darkseid story. I think if you throw too much at a team, plus then you have nowhere to go if this is successful enough for a sequel. Anyway, I'm kind of tired of all the arguments of how DC could never do it, and how the Justice League is just not the team that the Avengers are. No, they're not. It's apples and oranges. It really is, because the universes are built different. The Justice League is the United Nations of heroes. The Avengers are all these cool people who are coming together for a mutual cause. They're really different universes, and everybody in the Justice League is super powerful, including Batman, for whatever reason you want to use. You can't compare the teams other than the fact that they are the flagship of their universes. I feel like DC needs to make this happen in order to compete, at least in the movie markets. I know my world's finest idea is kind of far-fetched and probably unlikely, but a world's finest Superman and Batman, I think, is more likely than the others. I don't see us ever having an Aquaman movie. I'm sure DC's shooting itself in the foot for not capitalizing on Joss Whedon when they had him for a Wonder Woman movie, because if the Wonder Woman movie was 1/10 of what the Avengers was, DC would be clapping and throwing money at Joss to continue on with that franchise. So it's possible. It can happen. It just has to be done thoughtfully and done right. Planned out. Marvel, I don't think they did too much planning, but they obviously did enough that they knew way back with Iron Man 1, they knew where they wanted to go. They informed all their directors. They said, look, here's the end result. Now, look, 2012, summer, what is the biggest blockbuster movie of all time? And it's only a week into it. Avengers is going to be the example that others are going to follow. And I think DC, if you have to go by this template. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm sure many will argue. I'm sure there's some things people will like and some things they won't like that I said. But Avengers kicks butt. Why haven't you seen it yet? Signing out.